Hello and welcome to this, the third of our videos featuring our new Vantage investment strategies. In this particular video I'm going to be talking to our lead investment advisor Roger Hartacre about the Predator strategy. Roger, I think we should begin really by defining what are the distinctive features of the Predator advisory service.
Well, as with the resources service, one of the main distinctive features is the fact that we offer or provide a targeted growth rate which we aim to achieve. Now that's hugely different from what goes on normally in the industry. You know, if you're an investor and you go for financial advice, you'll be asked what type of risk you want to take, and you'll be put into one of various categories from cautious, moderate to adventurous, but with no real notion of what those investment profiles will produce, except that there's a relative notion that, you know, cautious, you should earn less than if you're adventurous, but you're taking less risk.
And in the case of Predator and trying to put a notional risk category on this, how would you categorise Predator from a risk specific point of view?
Yeah, well, that's a fair question. But you know, with Predator, we're aiming to achieve a 50% on average rate of return. And the on average is an important word there, because investors shouldn't expect that they're going to get 15% each and every year. But if we take the safe rate of return as the deposit rate and say that's 2%, then if we're trying to achieve 15%, we're obviously taking some risks. But given the specific investment strategy that we're pursuing, I would categorise this as adventurous, but certainly not speculative.
Okay. Now, investors would still tell you that 50% sounds ambitious in comparison to what's out there in the market, or what, you know, the general proposition. So, in order to achieve 15%, where will you be investing? Well,
the investment strategy is to focus entirely on asymmetric investment opportunities.
Okay, asymmetric investment opportunities. I think that's a word that we should explain for the benefit of our viewers. What is asymmetric investment?
Okay, perhaps best to first explain what a symmetrical investment opportunity is, an example of which would be an investment that had an equal chance of going up by 10% or going down by 10%. Now, that's an investment that I'm certainly not interested in buying, and I don't see why anyone else would be interested in buying. But that's a symmetrical investment.
And I'll be saying that in the main, most investors, whether they realise it or not, are actually invested symmetrically.
I wouldn't say that all their investments are symmetrical investments, but I think it happens a lot of the time, because the question that I'm posing every time I want to make an investment decision is not being asked. Most investors, they will buy into a particular stock market. For example, the UK stock market. Maybe they buy a FTSE tracker, but it's on the expectation that over a number of years, the stock market will go up. And the investment industry has done a fantastic job over the years of convincing investors that they're not able to time the market. I well remember a well-known fund manager many years ago. Their marketing department came up with this clever strapline, which was that it's better to have time in the market, inverted commas, rather than timing the market. And what that really meant was that, you know, if values went down, as long as you stayed in the market, they would eventually go up. Coming back to your question, when investors are looking at investment opportunities, are they saying, will this go up by 50%? Will it go down by 30%? What's the probability? I don't think that question gets asked.
No. So it's a lot down to the judgment of the advisor, in this case yourself, for Predator, clearly. So in terms of asymmetrical investment then, what current investment opportunities are attractive to you?
Well, I mean, in terms of the numbers, we'll be looking at, because we're aiming for 15% per year, it's no good looking for opportunities to give us a 10% upside. So we're looking for investments which have a potential to go by 50% over a 12-month period, and probably 500% upside, 50% downside over a 3-year period, 3 to 5 year period.
But surely there can't be too many opportunities available where these sort of returns are possible.
Well, there are not that many, but if you're prepared to put in the work and dig them out, they are there.
Okay. Now, we've deliberately called this strategy Predator, and that would conjure up for most people an image, a predatory image. Could you expand upon that for us?
Well, yes, we've used the term predator because it has certain connotations which are relevant to the investment strategy. And the main one being that we sit in wait and wait for this asymmetric investment opportunity to come along, and we pounce on it before we lose the opportunity. And the other one, I suppose, which is relevant, is that if you use the image of the tiger. The tiger doesn't waste its time chasing elephants. It pursues things it knows it has a chance of catching. And so, same for us here. We're only going to be focusing on investments that meet our criteria, and most investments that doesn't apply to.
And that would suggest that in order to capture that opportunity, that at any given moment in time, you would have to have sufficient liquidity, sufficient cash ready to make that purchase.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's really a very important distinction between us and fund managers in general. Because although people may not realise it, fund managers work to mandates, and most mandates would preclude a manager having more than 10% in cash at any one time, even if they wanted to have more cash. So we don't have that, and certainly part of this strategy is that we're prepared to sit on cash. We're not just going to invest in anything, we will patiently wait for the right opportunity.
So typically then, Roger, what type of investments would you be looking to advise upon within this strategy?
Well, in the main, we're going to use collective investment schemes so that we're spreading the risk, even though we're focusing in particular areas. Those collective investment schemes will be either exchange-traded funds, known as ETFs, or professionally managed funds if we think they can do a better job. But in addition, we will invest or recommend investment in individual shares where we can't get exposure through a collective scheme to the theme that we want to invest in, or if we think that we're going to do very much better with a particular share rather than the collective.
Could you expand a little bit on the subject of investment themes, some of the themes you're interested in particular?
Yeah, we're pursuing 5 main themes. These are what we call cyclicals, Phoenix, growth markets, growth sectors, and disruptive technology.
And could you expand a little bit on, give some examples there from those 5?
Yeah, well, which ones?
Phoenix and growth.
Phoenix and growth. Yeah, Phoenix, this is the idea that, we're using the idea of Phoenix rising from the ashes. So the investments in this sector are those which have fallen in value a great deal. They're usually either unloved or even hated, but have started to turn around, and there are reasons to expect that they will now rebound. And when they do, then these types of investment can produce hundreds of % return in a very short period. And I really love looking for these opportunities because the upside is so great, but the downside is very limited.
And amongst those were this concept of disruptive technology. I mean, that has a connotation to us, doesn't it? And I know it's something you're passionate about. Could you explain for us disruptive technology and why that excites you as well?
Well, yes, I can, but could I just mention about growth markets? Because
Oh,
I forgot to say about growth markets. I got carried away with the Phoenix. Because I think this is very important. The growth sectors, because within a market index, whether it's a US, UK, whatever, can be doing badly, but within that there are sectors that can do very well. And so that's what this is all about, that part of the portfolio. An example of that would be right now cybersecurity, which we think is a very big growth industry and worth focusing on. And another one is the marijuana industry, which is just beginning to take off. And
Pot stocks.
Pot stocks, here we call them pot stocks. And they've already given a huge amount of return, but this is just the beginning. It's the birth of a whole new industry. And I think investors are going to make fortunes out of buying into marijuana stocks. And it's certainly a focus that we have in the portfolio.
That's a good. And so going back to the other issue, which was disruptive technology as well. How does that fit in?
Yeah, well, there's so many exciting technologies happening, so you can't really be out of that sector as an investor if you want to make money. So, yeah, there's some technologies which help our life, make it easier, make it cheaper. But disruptive technologies, technology which, as the word implies, actually disrupts the way we do things. It completely changes. So, again, if you can get in early as an investor in some of these technologies, you can make a lot of money. There's a number of these. Take, for example, electric cars. There's a move towards electric cars, and that's going to change the way that industry works. But how, as an investor, do we take advantage of that? Well, our answer is we're going to be buying into the companies that make or find the materials that are needed for the batteries, and our focus there is on lithium, graphite, and cobalt. So that's really exciting. The other technologies, we've got driverless cars, we've got 3D printing, we've got artificial intelligence. All these technologies are going to produce wonderful outcomes, I think, for investors who get positioned correctly. And probably the most disruptive technology has to do with cryptocurrencies, which are in vogue at the moment. But behind the cryptocurrencies is a thing called blockchain. And that could be the most disruptive of all. And again, I think investors are going to make fortunes out of this, and it might as well be us.
Absolutely. Might as well be us indeed. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular video introduction and found it interesting. You can find out more about the Predator strategy and indeed resources strategy by going to our dedicated website. The domain address is at the bottom of your screen now, and where you'll be able to find out a lot more information. So thank you for tuning in and watching this video. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye.